Welcome to A Meaningful Marketplace.
I'm Sarah Masoni from Oregon State University's Food Innovation Center, where I've helped countless dreamers launch their new food products. It's the science of taking a food delight from the kitchen to mass manufacturing and still keeping its great taste. That's what I do. I've been called the woman with the $1 million palate, although I haven't tried to cash that check yet. Listen in weekly for real-life stories.
I'm Sarah Marshall, owner of Marshall's Hot Sauce and author of Preservation Pantry, modern canning from root to top and stem to core. I love inspiring business owners to get started on their journeys, encouraging folks to be part of their local community, and I'm excited to help business owners tell their stories. Join us as we explore the journeys of women entrepreneurs in the food and beverage industry. Hello and welcome to Masoni and Marshall, the Meaningful Marketplace. We are here weekly to discuss the journeys of food entrepreneurs. We're glad that you've joined us today as we bring you stories of hope and inspiration. This is Sarah Marshall, owner of Marshall's Hot Sauce. Sarah Masoni is on an epic road trip for the summer, so she will be back soon and we will hear all about her adventures. We would like to introduce you to our co-host. We have been partnering with the Regional Food Business Center to bring you guests from our 6 state regions. We're currently meeting with business owners from the great state of Idaho, and this is our first time with our Idaho co-host. I would like to introduce you to today's co-host, Janna Hamlett from University of Oregon's Extension Services. Welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome to everybody that's joining us. And I'm actually with University of Idaho, just so you know. I've got 2 actual dual appointments. So I'm part-time University of Idaho Extension and part-time TechHelp. And TechHelp is Idaho's Manufacturing Extension Partnership Center. So those of you that are in different states, every state has an MEP. So reach out to your MEP if you have something you might need a little bit of help with. Everyone's named a little different, so some of your states might be named differently. Ours for Idaho is called TechHelp. But thank you very much, and I'm glad to be here over the next couple of months highlighting some of our great Idaho entrepreneurs.
Perfect. Well, I'm so glad that you're here today and you're going to be our guide to all things Idaho. So let's get to know you just a little bit before we introduce our guest. What is some of your favorite things about the state of Idaho?
So there's a lot of outdoor, and you can pretty much hit most of the seasons within the state. So Idaho's a pretty big state. We've got parts up in northern Idaho that are completely different than the parts that are in southern Idaho. So we get pretty much all the outdoor recreation of any kind during whatever season.
And the interesting thing that I just learned about Idaho as we're scheduling guests is that you have different time zones for the state.
We do. We
so
have
in Oregon, we just
zones.
have one. We have one time zone in Oregon. And tell us about your 2 time zones. How does it work?
So we have Pacific and we have Mountain Time. And so most of southern Idaho, so think Snake River kind of plains there. So Boise, Twin Falls, Idaho Falls, those are kind of the big cities that are in the southern section, is all in Mountain Time zone. But then you go about central Idaho, you cross the bridge, because there's not that many roads that actually head up to northern Idaho, so there's only a few. And voila, you are now in Pacific time zone. So it's always fun because we're one state, but I have colleagues, and so we're always, is that Pacific time when we're scheduling, or is that Mountain time? And you got to be very particular, or else somebody gets on, and I thought this meeting was at this time. No, that's this time Mountain time, or this time Pacific time. So we're all used to screwing with each other's schedules by an hour.
Yeah, I know. We'll try to be flex for these next few shows just in case we have some of that going on.
It happens.
Well, I am so excited that you'll be here on this journey with us, introducing us to all these new people. So thank you for signing on to be our co-host for all things Idaho. We would like to encourage you to connect with your state by signing up for the Regional Food Business Center newsletter. It's a breeze to sign up. You go to Northwest Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center.com, hit the Connect with Us button, and choose the button to receive newsletters. And then you can hear all about what's going on in your state and your state regions. We want to thank our sponsor for supporting Masoni and Marshall. Thank you for helping us to spread the word about small business owners and entrepreneurs. Let's hear a word from our sponsor. The Northwest and Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center is the proud sponsor of the Meaningful Marketplace podcast, giving a voice to food from across the 6-state region of Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, and Wyoming. The Food Business Center supports Northwest and Rocky Mountain food industry makers as part of the USDA's National Network of Food Business Centers, supporting a more resilient, diverse, and competitive food system as a go-to source for small and mid-tier food and farm businesses with a focus on underserved communities, providing education in the form of technical knowledge, business programs, and industry news. We sponsor trade shows, meetups, and conferences to connect growers, producers, retailers, distributors, and processors, all to stimulate business and raise the standards of our storied food industry. Join us as we travel through the 6-state region, learning more about food makers, food hubs, and food systems. Visit the website at Northwest Rocky Mountain Regional Food Businesses.com to get connected. And I have the pleasure of introducing you to our guest today. This is our first Idaho guest, McKinley Dixon, the owner of Northern Latitude Foods, producing organic wild rice in Idaho. Welcome, McKinley.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
We're so delighted to have you on the show, and we really like to connect our listeners to you. So can you give us the best way for them to follow along on your story with your social media and online presence?
Yeah, for sure. We're just Northern Lat Foods at Instagram and northernlatfoods.com for our website, where we have sales, lots of information. We keep a little blog, so it's a good place to follow us there as well.
Perfect. And we like to start at the beginning of your story. So when did you start your business and what inspired you to produce wild rice?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of serendipity. I'd kind of been looking around for something interesting to do after college. And my dad happened to run into a gentleman who used to do wild rice in that area way back in the day. It used to be called St. Mary's Wild Rice, and it still exists to some level, but it had really tapered off as everybody kind of aged out of the business. And so he was touring me around the fields and all these beautiful areas, the south end of Lake Coeur d'Alene, that I've never known that wild rice. I've been there plenty of times, never seen any wild rice, had no idea what was there. And so that kind of was the impetus to really dive deep into it, and really saw it as a very unique and beautiful opportunity to provide really fantastic local food to our region.
Very cool. And is wild rice something that the state of Idaho is known for, Janna?
No, not necessarily. But again, like I said, Northern Idaho, Southern Idaho, you've got all different kinds of growing regions. And so, yeah, it's definitely one of those crops that is definitely growing in popularity.
Very cool. Well, since you are a wild rice expert, McKinley, just in case we have listeners who don't know what it is, will you tell us about wild rice, how it's harvested, what's unique about it?
Yeah, for sure. It's probably one of the most beautiful and underappreciated grains that's native to North America. It's an ancient grain. It has roots as far back as 12,000 years. It's mostly native to Canada. It kind of the more eastern and Midwest is where it's really popular. Very popular with the Native American tribes, like the Ojibwa, and they typically refer to it as mannamin or waterberry, goodberry. And it's fantastic food, and it's really great for waterfowl. So you often see it served in dishes with, duck and stuff like that. And that's kind of what's really cool about it. And then its origin over in Idaho, where it's not necessarily native, but it has been here for at least 100 years, is duck hunters kind of bringing it over, spreading a little bit, and then having it kind of we have such a similar climate up here in northern Idaho to those Midwest regions where it's native, that it just has grown and proliferated in some of these fantastic low-lying areas of Lake Coeur d'Alene and some of these areas up the St. Mary's and St. Joe River.
And you mentioned the river. Is it important for wild rice to have water access?
Yes, yes. I guess I totally glossed over that part. It is a completely aquatic grass. So that's also one of the very unique things about it, and requires temperatures below 32 to help germinate it. And so you can't you can grow it in southern regions, obviously very popular to grow in California and stuff like that, but it often has to be refrigerated over winter down there because it doesn't get cold enough. But up here, yes, it is grown in lakes and shallow bodies of water where it's 3 to 8 inches, 3 feet to 8 inches of water. And it has it's very specific about those depths. Any deeper, it's not going to germinate. Any shallower, it's not going to grow to the same extent that it should.
And then we're used to here in Oregon, we have a lot of cranberry bogs. So that's kind of what I think of when I think of this kind of thing. Is there a specific way that you have to harvest it once you have grown it in that body of water? Like, do you flood it? Do you pull the whole plants? What do you do? How do you get it out of that water?
Yeah, yeah. So we have two kind of ways of growing it. We have these kind of we have the public land, which is kind of Hayburn State Park, where most of it grows and is native and where we harvest it. And yes, it's completely flooded the entire time. So that water is always there. And so we harvest it with these custom built pontoon airboats. And so we have a little old like Cessna engine on the back and just a couple of pontoons. We keep it light and just harvest it with that, with the big header. It's because it's a wild crop, it doesn't all germinate or doesn't all ripen at the same time. So we make a couple of passes through. And so it's really important to preserve those stalks so that they aren't getting beat down or something like that. And so, yeah, we've developed this boat, and every year we try to improve it a little bit, but that's how we get it off there.
So what is the growing season, McKinley? Like how, so you said it doesn't all go, you don't harvest all at the same time. So how long do you like first harvest to the last harvest? What time frame is that?
Yeah, so it's basically just 2 very intense weeks in September.
Okay.
And so it's like a couple of days, typically, maybe 4 days. And then the next kind of round is ready to go through. And then another 4 days after that, go through again, up to maybe 3 times passing through.
And then once you've harvested it, do you dry it? Do you have drying facilities or something like that?
Yeah, there's kind of two different ways to do it. Typically with grains, yeah, you would almost immediately dry it. With wild rice, we actually keep it a little bit wet and almost compost it. We'll put it into big piles and then turn them maybe once a day for about a week or two. And that's what gives that wild rice that beautiful dark black color. And then after that step, you will go to like a parching oven, dry it out, get that moisture content really low, and then it's shelf stable. After that, you can kind of at your leisure grade and de-hull it. And then after that, it's ready to be packaged and sold.
What a fun and interesting process.
Yes.
It's one of those things where you're like, how did somebody figure that out?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so that's my question, McKinley. So if this, you said you kind of got this from a family that had done this before. So where did you learn about how to do this stuff?
Just mostly trial and error, and here, getting the lore from back in the day, seeing old photos and stuff like that of their different processes and attempts. So we're standing on some shoulders there, but we've done a lot of our own trial and error to really try to perfect the machines when we harvest and how we approach every aspect of harvest and the growing season.
And if people are interested if you're a very visual person, first you should, of course, go to the website and check out all the things that McKinley does. You can see pictures of the boats and all of that process. But there's also a video that you can find on YouTube through Idaho Preferred Video. Can you tell us about that program or who put that out there and what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, so there's a lot of good programs out there provided by the state, sometimes the USDA. Idaho Preferred is kind of our local Idaho State Department of Agriculture resource, and it has been Pretty fantastic. Not just for me, but I think a lot of the other Idaho guests you guys will have on as well have really good stories. Um, and they have provided a number of resources, just even as simple as pointing us in the right direction or connecting us to other people, other entrepreneurs in the state, but also have done a lot of really incredible stuff like these marketing videos where they come out to our farm um, and spend a day, 2 days with us out there during harvest and really capture kind of the essence of what we do and how we do it.
Janna, have you seen a lot of these other videos from your state?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm acquainted with most of them. So we've worked with most of them at one time or another. And so yeah, I'm always excited when the newest ones come out and go look at them. So I like it. It's a nice, easy way of telling the story. And they're short. They're like McKinley, is yours like 3 minutes or 4 minutes? It's not very
Yeah.
long.
Yep. For sure.
Yeah, and they're great short videos and they're on YouTube, so you could it's not like you need to be a subscription service, but yeah, they're lovely ones and they give a good family story and it really helps with those consumers that are wanting to know where their food is coming from. You've got the story to go with it. And so I like it. I'm glad they're doing that. And they're going to continue from what I understand. So
Yeah, it sounds really fun. It seems like a cool way to hear people's stories and connect with them visually and seems really fun. And I'm sure for you, seeing people from your state, it's just exciting to be like, oh,
oh yeah.
yeah, you feel like so proud of them all.
Yep, yep. Especially when they're my clients or my that I've helped them before, and you get all giddy about it because I think it gets a pretty decent viewing. So,
Yeah, that's so exciting and fun. I'll have to, now I want to watch them all.
yep.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want you to tell us about your Good Food Award you won, McKinley. We'll be right back.
Oregon State University's College of Agricultural Sciences and the Food Innovation Center are proud sponsors of Meaningful Marketplace. With a mission to serve all Oregonians, we are committed to giving voice to those whose food and agricultural stories are not always heard. By providing access and opportunity for a more diverse and just food system, because food brings people together.
Okay, and we are back. And you won a Good Food Award. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, Good Food's a pretty interesting organization. They kind of take submissions every year. They have kind of a good food gathering in Portland, and I believe I met your co-hosts there. And a few other people, and it's kind of a really good time to have this beautiful showcase of all these pretty much all small businesses working really hard to promote stuff, like in my case, organic and sustainable. And then there's also a lot of other good social aspects to it. But it was really cool to be part of that group and be part of the running in those awards as well.
Yeah, do you notice that it changed your business or how you approach people after you won that award?
I wouldn't say it's a whole lot. It's a nice little marketing tool. And opens the gateway. The Good Food isn't as well known probably over in this region as it is maybe in Oregon or California, but it is definitely a fantastic little marketing tool for us.
Perfect. I think sometimes, we have a lot of listeners who are other makers, and sometimes people wonder, what things are beneficial to apply for and be part of and what are not. And I always recommend that people are part of the Good Food Awards, especially if part of, and the Good Food just organization in general, especially if they are making food that's organic and that's good and they want to help to spread that word, because I think it really does help with that piece of it.
For sure.
And I noticed on your website when I was checking it out that you have a lot of really awesome, beautiful recipes with good photos and instructions. And what's your favorite thing to make with your wild rice?
Oh man. Yeah, that is kind of the beautiful thing about wild rice is just the versatility of it. You can make this time of year summer salads, fantastic with like a cucumber salad, cowboy salad kind of thing. I love recently I've been playing around with wild rice flour, and we've been having a lot of fun with whole grains, different cookies, stuff like that. But just on the whole grain, I'll do like a week's worth of food, kind of do some meal prep, and then you can just make whatever you want off that. Salads, it reheats really well, so you can do melt some cheese in there. That's fantastic. Put a little soft boiled egg on the top, a little salt and pepper. It's fantastic. So yeah, it's just the beauty is the variety and all the different things you can do with it.
And do restaurants in your region use wild rice?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've got a few really cool local food trucks up here, and that are bringing back kind of Native American cuisine. And so it's been really cool to work with, in this case, Powwow up here in Post Falls, and they make some pretty incredible Native American dishes with the wild rice and just with different Native American styles. And so that's really cool to see and work with them, as well as some higher end restaurants that will pair it with like a nice, a fancy, duck dish and or chicken and wild rice soup. So yeah, it's been really cool to see all the different creative outlets that some of the chefs have been able to come up with the wild rice.
And we always love to talk about packaging because sometimes people change packaging throughout their experience and business. So tell us about your packaging you use and if it's the one you've always used.
Yeah, packaging is really, really fun. Yeah, no, I've changed it quite a few times. It's also been another point of trial and error. And we've changed the design. We initially had kind of a brown, more subdued package, and the feedback was more color and I need a window. So we had a very big window and lots of color on the back. And so, yeah, it's kind of been a process of trial and error there. Getting the size correct is also a very interesting problem that you don't necessarily think about at the beginning. It's kind of all design. And then, of course, if you're doing like organic or any other certifications, you got to have all of that checked out and get that in a row. So there's a lot of complicated little parts that you don't necessarily expect packaging to have when you first get into this kind of thing.
So McKinley, how did you know that they wanted a window and they wanted colors? Like, did you do like an informal survey, or did you hand it out and ask people, or how did you come about that conversation?
Yeah, so the first year I did it, I actually had kind of my initial design, which was kind of a low key, kind of brown craft bag without a window because the printer couldn't do a window for whatever reason. And so when I had that, and it was actually another cool thing about Idaho Preferred is they do the holiday gift box. And so kind of the big feedback from that, and then some farmer markets we had was like, sometimes when we would sell it at farmers markets, people were like, oh, you're selling coffee. No, 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 no. And so that was kind of also part of the impetus, make it very clear, what we have for sale there, and bigger wild rice signs. But yeah, so it's just feedback. And then, we kind of buy packaging for the year. So whatever the feedback has been over the last 365 days, we'll incorporate it into a quick redesign and then go from there. So it's kind of a constant iteration.
Well, I think your current packaging is really nice. I think it looks lovely. I do think a window is always helpful, but I think for a lot of makers when they're first starting, usually a craft bag is kind of the way to go just because it's like what you have access to the quickest, and then you can kind of change things from there. But I think having that window is really nice. When you said that people would mistake it for coffee, I have a farmer's market neighbor friend who also has had that problem where they make a product, a grain, and people always are like, "Oh, is this coffee?" I think that's a very common mistake. So I think listening to that feedback and putting a window in, it was a really great decision, and I think it looks lovely. I think your packaging is really nice.
Appreciate it.
And you mentioned farmers markets, so let's tell people where what farmers markets they can find you at in your area.
Yeah, for sure. If you're up here in North Idaho in Coeur d'Alene, we're up at the Cooney County Farmers Market every Saturday up here in Hayden, and Wednesday down in Riverstone. And then we're also at the Sandpoint Farmers Market on Saturdays as well. And then we also do Taste of CDA, kind of the art on the green, when that comes to town as well.
And when you're doing those markets, do you feel like you have to explain what wild rice is to people, or do they know?
Initially, yeah, we did. My mom helps quite a bit on the farmers markets. She runs those. And it's every year it's a little bit better as kind of word spreads. And so not as much, but yeah, there's definitely quite a few people who have had no experience with it. It's really fun to see it. It kind of draws out anyone who's from the Midwest because they're like, oh, I love wild rice. I grew up on this stuff. And then people more West Coast, you kind of got to educate them a little more, but it's a fun journey either way.
And for people that aren't in your area and can't just go buy from you directly at the farmer's market, where can they get your product?
Yeah, for sure. So we're on our website, northernlatfoods.com, and then we also have a couple of products on Amazon under Northern Lat Foods as well, Northern Latitude Foods as well.
Perfect. And we always love to talk about challenges because we hope that people learn from one another. So, what have been your biggest challenges that you can share with people to hope that it helps them to avoid that?
Oh, yes. We have lots of challenges. So, I mean, and just the way the business is and how wild rice is, you have kind of even more challenges stacked on top of that. Mostly it's things breaking during harvest. That's always been a fun one, whether it's engines going down, vehicles breaking, tires blowing out, wild forest fires, trying to avoid those as we haul the rice around, kind of everything. But I mean, and that's kind of the other problem too with the wild rice is that all of our stuff is custom and unique to us. And so I can't just, call up somebody and, borrow a piece of equipment in a pinch. But as far as other things to help other starting entrepreneurs, I think is just the basics back to cash flow, logistics, and how you manage that. And cash flow is one of those ones that I don't think anybody talks to anybody. There's not enough conversation out there because you can be a profitable business, but if you don't have the proper cash flow, you're dead in the water. And so that's, I think, one that everybody should spend a lot more time researching who's starting a business.
Yeah, I think that's true. People don't really love to talk about money, even on this
Yes,
show.
especially on a small business.
Yeah, it's hard because you don't want it to sound like your business isn't successful, but it's just
Right.
tricky. It's tricky to, especially as you grow, to have enough money to keep buying inventory and supplies and equipment and all of those things. Packaging, if you decide to make a change, then you have to usually invest in, if you order 100,000 bags, it's way cheaper than if you order 50 bags. So it
Right.
just gets really
Per
tricky.
unit. Yep.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And budgeting is so difficult because you don't know what you don't know. So
Yeah.
it's
Right.
hard when you're trying to figure out what your budget for like your equipment breakdowns are going to be. You don't have like a history of 20 years of this tractor always breaks this at this point and this at that point. So it's so hard to do budgeting for smaller businesses and smaller entrepreneurs because it's just so difficult to anticipate if they don't know what's going to cost them and when is that going to hit.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think we should try to kind of normalize talking about it and just saying that there's tricky roadblocks. I think people find creative ways to find funding or investments, or it's always a little bit different for everybody. But how have you managed to keep things moving if you hit any of those financial roadblocks?
Yeah, so I feel the majority of the time I probably do exactly what most small entrepreneurs do, just put more of my own cash into it.
Hmm.
Or, see if you can work out a deal with somebody if you have an invoice due, hey, can I get another 30 days? That can kind of help shuffle stuff around. But yeah, you definitely have to be creative. Maybe I sell this piece of equipment a little sooner, or maybe I buy this piece a little later. Yeah, it's just a big, never-ending puzzle. That's super tricky, but there's been some great grants out there. That always helps. Just talking to other people, sometimes somebody already has solved that problem. So yeah, getting a solid network of regional entrepreneurs doing the same thing you are can be super, super helpful as well.
Yeah, in our area, we have a couple of different food groups that we've created that kind of unite all the packaged food makers. I run a particular one that's just for hot sauce makers, so that if we ran out of bottles or lids or different things, had problems with stuff, or had broken pieces of equipment, we could share with each other until we got things up and running again. There's also one for just food makers as a whole outside of hot sauce. But that has been a really nice thing for us. So I always encourage any listeners, if you don't have something like that in your area, you can start it up, and you can start it up really easily. We just did it as a Google group, which is like, can't get any easier than that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it really helps, because it helps especially when something isn't coming, rather than paying $300 to overnight some lids that you need for production the next day. You can just borrow them from a friend and then give them those lids back when yours arrive.
Right.
Yeah, I think networking is a big thing, right? Even if somebody isn't exactly making wild rice like McKinley, because he doesn't have too many cohorts that are making the same or similar product, but just networking with other entrepreneurs in your area, I think, is very helpful.
Yeah, do you have specific events that happen in Idaho that unite entrepreneurs?
Not
We
as much in northern Idaho, but we definitely have some with like Idaho preferred meetups and stuff like that. And I'm sure, and of course, working with Janna and all the amazing programs she puts on as well have been a great source. And I'm sure she has plenty more to list off as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we have a formalized group, but we've got several kind of pocket areas. But yeah, like McKinley says, the Idaho to Preferred is definitely maybe the more formal and does cover the entire state of Idaho. But it does have to be products made in Idaho. And so sometimes, depending upon your products and depending upon where you're getting your ingredients and such from, you might not qualify for those. But we've got a few things, but I wouldn't say they're very formal. They're more like you said, it's a group of people that they know a phone number they can call, and they know somebody they can help out. And then of course, university resources, we have our extension program, and there's at least usually a food and family and consumer sciences in every state or every county. So a lot of times you can reach out there, and they might be able to hook you up with somebody else. The small business development centers, we've got them in every region. Some of them have food focused people, some do not. So again, sometimes there's a lot of help there, but sometimes it's not. So there's a few resources, but like McKinley says, being able to chat with other people is important.
So if we have some Idaho listeners that don't know what Idaho Preferred is, how do they go about checking out what you guys are doing and what's happening?
Yeah, they can go. So it is ran through the Department of Ag, our Idaho State Department of Ag. And so we've got web pages there for Idaho Preferred. They've got catalogs they put out every year of all the products that are in the Idaho Preferred program. McKinley mentioned the gift boxes. I love those. They always come around the holiday season, and we usually do at least 2, sometimes 3 of those. And I always buy all of them. So that's actually where I got introduced to McKinley's product, because I'm in Southern Idaho. So I didn't know about that, but I got his product through Idaho Preferred, and I was all excited. We used it to make some salmon with it, but I don't know if that was okay, McKinley, but it was good. It tasted
It's
great.
one of my favorites too. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Seems like a perfect combo.
Yeah.
Very fun. Well, we always like to ask if you have any advice for people who are currently dreaming up a business.
Ooh. Think long and hard about it. Yeah, I mean, you get some of the harder days, you definitely need the passion to help you get through those. And so, make sure there's a solid foundation there before you really dive into it. Do a lot of research, find as many resources as you can before you start it. Ask questions, go to local events, local restaurants, wherever you think your product might eventually end up, and see how much information you can get at the beginning, because getting started in the right direction is so important. It's so hard to turn the ship later on if you need to make a change. So the more information you have up front, usually the better.
So we talked about your challenges, McKinley. What is your favorite part of your business, or what is your favorite part of Northern Latitude Foods?
probably harvest. It's hard to beat northern Idaho in mid-September. There's no place more beautiful, and being out on the water all day uh, and just harvesting rice and just enjoying it. We usually get a campsite, and so it's just kind of basically camping and harvesting rice for 2 weeks, and it's a nice little break from everything else. It's a nice focus. The weather's usually fantastic, warm days, free, cool, crisp nights. And so it's it's a little slice of heaven out there.
That sounds really lovely and fun. And do you usually go harvest with a team of people, or is it just you and your family? What's that usually like?
Yeah, the first year I tried to do it by myself. I had a buddy help me a little bit, but it was basically 3 days on the boat, fill enough totes, haul those down, come back, do it again, and that was pretty exhausting. So I've roped a good chunk of my family into it now. So I've got my mom helping down harvesting, and then my dad's transporting the rice. So I've roped pretty much all the family into it at this point.
I think that's key. It
Yeah,
takes your family at first to help and support you, but it also makes it more fun.
yeah, for sure. It's been a
Do-
great bonding experience.
Doing anything solo can be pretty lonely, and then all of a sudden you're just like, "What am I doing?"
Yep, exactly.
Well, I'm glad your fam's there to support you and help you out.
Yes, they've been great.
And one final question that we like to ask is you're going to be connected with your community from this podcast, but also our community. So, what do you need from the community in general right now to support your business?
Oh man, I think we've pretty much got the operations part down. So just, drive sales, find some more creative uses, and some really interesting. I'd love to get more local chefs involved, in northern Idaho and southern Idaho, and Washington and Oregon as well. So if anybody has any really cool ideas for outlets or new creative recipes, I'd love to hear about them.
Perfect. And if people want to buy from you directly, where do they go?
Yeah, just northernlatfoods.com.
Great. Well, I've had so much fun learning about Idaho today and learning about wild rice. Thank you for coming on the show and telling us about what you are or what you do and who you are. It's been really great. And Janna, I can't wait to hear more about Idaho.
Oh, yeah. We got a couple months to go.
It'll be a fun journey. I'm so excited. We want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening to the show. You are our food community, and we couldn't do this without you. You can always reach out to Sarah, both of us, on our Instagram, Meaningful Marketplace Podcast. We record our shows live every week, and you can find us on your favorite podcast platforms like iTunes and Spotify. And we would like to thank our team for helping us to put out these stories. If you would like to be a guest on the show, you can send us a message on our Instagram, Meaningful Marketplace. And we will be back next week, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye.
You're listening to the Startup Radio Network. Listen, learn, launch. 10% of our gross revenue goes directly to women entrepreneurs in developing countries around the world through Kiva's microfinance program.